I stood before the check-in table holding the invitation like it was final proof I still had a son. The woman did not even glance at the list before she smiled and said, "Your name isn't here." She did not know I spent 22 years in internal audit sniffing out fraud. If they wanted to erase me from this wedding, I was about to show the whole city exactly what they had just deleted from their lives. My name is Marjorie Whittaker. I am 58 years old, a widow living in the quiet river town of Briar Glen. For the last 22 years, I have worked at Northgate Compliance Services. My job is simple. I look for things that do not add up. I find the loose thread in a ledger, and I pull until the whole sweater unravels. I never thought I would have to apply those skills to my own son. It started when the invitation arrived on a Tuesday. It was heavy cardstock, cream-coloured with gold embossing that read Evan Whittaker and Calla Wynne. Evan is 30 now. My boy. The invitation felt heavy in my hand, like a brick disguised as paper. It was modern, perhaps too modern for my taste, with a little black square in the corner, a QR code for checking in. It felt cold, impersonal. I should have seen the signs earlier. I met Calla 6 months ago. She was beautiful, polished, and terrifyingly perfect. She knew exactly what tea I liked. She complimented my home decor with words that sounded like they came from a magazine script. But every time I asked about her parents or where she grew up, she pivoted. She would smile that practiced smile and say, "Oh, Marjorie. The past is so boring compared to our future. Don't you think?" She never answered. Not once. Evan was no help. Since his father died, he had drifted away from me like a boat with a cut rope. First, the Sunday dinners stopped. Then the calls became texts. Then the texts became brief. "I'm busy. Mom, just work stuff. Talk later." I missed him. I missed the boy who used to run to me with scraped knees. Now, he was a man who looked at me like I was an obligation he was trying to pay off. The warning bells rang loud and clear the day before the ceremony. I called Evan to ask what time I should arrive for the rehearsal. He hesitated for a long time. "Mum?" "Look, Calla is really stressed. She thinks it would be better if you didn't come early. Just come to the ceremony tomorrow. Please." For me, it was a polite request, wrapped in barbed wire. I was being managed, handled. But I am his mother. So I ignored the feeling in my gut. I put on my dark blue dress. The one Evan used to say made me look like royalty. I took the gift I had wrapped with careful hands, and I took that invitation. It felt like the last ticket to my son's life. If I had this, I was still part of the family. The venue was the Lark and Linden Hall. It smelled of expensive flowers and old money. I walked up to the reception table, clutching my purse. 2 young women in matching headsets looked up. I handed them the card. One of them scanned the QR code. Her machine beeped a low, flat tone. She frowned. She typed something. She looked at her partner. The silence stretched. It was the silence of a mistake that was not a mistake. Then Calla appeared. She was in her white dress, looking like an angel made of ice. She did not look at the staff. She looked right at me. Her smile did not reach her eyes. "Marjorie," she said. "I thought Evan told you." I felt my chest tighten. Told me what this is my son's wedding. She leaned in, her voice barely a whisper, yet it carried the weight of a gavel striking wood. "Your name isn't here." I froze. The guests behind me began to murmur. I looked past her white veil. Evan was standing near the entrance to the ballroom. He was in his tuxedo. He looked handsome. He saw me. He saw his wife blocking his mother. He saw the line of guests behind me starting to whisper. And he did nothing. He looked down at his shoes. That hurt more than the rejection. He was letting this happen. I did not scream. I did not cry. I am a professional. I took my gift back. I turned around and walked out the heavy oak doors into the cool afternoon air. My hands were shaking, not from sadness, but from a cold, hard rage. I reached my car, and my phone buzzed in my purse. I pulled it out. It was a text message from a number I did not recognize. You were deleted from the list because you hold the key. I sat in my car with the engine idling, gripping the leather steering wheel until my knuckles turned the color of bone. My hands were shaking. It was not Parkinson's, and it was not the chill of the air conditioning. It was the realization that hit me harder than the rejection itself. Evan had seen me. He had stood there, 10 yards away, and watched his wife humiliate me. He had agreed to this. I took a deep breath, forcing my heart rate down. My training took over. In an audit, you do not cry over missing money. You follow the trail. I picked up the invitation from the passenger seat. I looked at that black square, the QR code that had sealed my fate. I pulled out my phone and scanned it again. But this time, I did not look for a welcome message. I looked at the URL. It did not lead to the Lark and Linden Hall's official website. It redirected to a generic domain hosted on a cheap server, registered less than 48 hours ago. I dialed the venue's main office number, bypassing the wedding coordinator. A woman answered on the second ring. Guest services, she said. This is Marjorie Whittaker, I said, my voice steady. I am a guest at the Whittaker Wynne wedding. I am having trouble with the QR code on the invitation. Can you tell me which software platform you use for check-in? There was a pause. The sound of typing. Ma'am, we use a standard printed guest list and iPads for seating. We don't issue individual QR codes on invitations. We never have. I hung up. It was a fake system. A barrier erected solely to filter specific people out. I put the car in reverse, but as I backed out, I saw movement near the dumpster enclosure. It was a young woman in a pale lavender dress, one of the bridesmaids. She was smoking a cigarette with frantic, jerky movements, wiping tears from her cheeks. I rolled down my window. Are you all right? I asked. She jumped, dropping the cigarette. She looked terrified. I shouldn't be out here. I'm Evan's mother, I said softly. Her face crumpled. She stepped closer to the car, glancing back at the venue entrance. It's a mess in there, she whispered. Calla changed the list this morning. She just took a red pen to it. It wasn't just you. 2 of his college friends, his cousin. She said they were negative energy. Evan tried to argue, but she said if he loved her, he would trust her process. Thank you, I said. I drove home in silence. The text message I had received earlier burned in my mind. You hold the key? Key. 2 weeks ago. Evan had called me. It was a Tuesday. Late. He had sounded casual. Too casual. He had asked, Mom, do you still have the binder with Dad's trust fund files? The original ones, I had told him. Yes. He had made a joke about me being a hoarder and changed the subject. I pulled into my driveway and went straight to the study. It smelled of lemon polish and the old tobacco scent of my late husband. Richard. I unlocked the grey metal filing cabinet in the corner. Richard was the chief accountant for a logistics firm. He did not believe in digital clouds. He believed in paper. I pulled out the thick, hanging folder labelled the Whittaker Family Trust. I flipped past the asset lists and the tax returns until I found the bylaws. I scanned the pages, my finger tracing the lines I had not read in 5 years. There it was, Clause 7A. In the event of the primary beneficiary's marriage, any release of the principal sum exceeding $50,000 requires the notarized signature of the second overseer to verify the union is in accordance with family interests. Without this signature, the trust remains frozen for a period of 36 months. I was the second overseer. I sat back in the chair. The cold logic of it washed over me. This was not just a mean-spirited daughter-in-law. This was a tactical strike. By physically barring me from the wedding, they created a narrative of estrangement. If I was not there, I could not sign. But that did not make sense. If I did not sign, the money stayed frozen. Why would they want that, unless they didn't need me to sign? I turned the page. A smaller, thinner envelope was clipped to the back cover of the folder. I did not remember putting it there. I opened it. Inside was a single sheet of paper, change of beneficiary and overseer authority. It was dated 3 days ago. At the bottom, next to Evan's signature, was another signature. It looped and curved with a distinct slant. It was my name. It was my handwriting. Oh my God. I whispered to the empty room. It was a perfect forgery, but I had not signed it. And if this document existed, they did not need me at the wedding. They needed me gone, so I could not prove I was still sane, still involved, and definitely not the person who signed this paper. They had erased me from the guest list to erase me from the legal record. I sat in the dark of my kitchen, the blue light of the phone screen illuminating the forged document on the table. It was 11 at night. My hand hovered over Evan's name in my contacts list. I needed to hear him say it. I needed to hear the lie in his voice so I could finally kill the hope that was making me weak. I pressed call. 1 ring. 2 rings. 3. It went on until the 6th ring, the point where voicemail usually kicks in. Then the line clicked open. What Evan said. His voice was thick, tight, like a man who had been pacing a room. He sounded annoyed, not apologetic. He sounded like a child caught with his hand in the jar, angry at the person who caught him. Did you know? I asked. I did not raise my voice. I kept it flat, the way I used to speak to embezzlers before I showed them the evidence. Did you know I was deleted from the guest list? The silence on the other end lasted 3 seconds. In my line of work, 3 seconds is an eternity. It is the time it takes to invent a story. Mom? He started, and I could hear the air hissing through his teeth. You make everything complicated. The words hit me like physical blows. I make it complicated. I was standing in the parking lot. Evan, I was holding a gift for you. Calla is sensitive. He snapped. She wanted a specific vibe. She said you would bring drama. And look, you are calling me on my wedding night causing drama. She was right. The QR code on my invitation was fake. Evan. It led to a dummy site. Did you know about that? I don't know, he shouted, but his voice cracked. Calla handles the planning. I don't get involved in the tech stuff. I just show up. You show up to sign papers, I said, like the trust documents. Did you think I wouldn't check the file clause 7A? Evan, you cannot access the principal without my signature. The explosion on the other end was immediate. Money. That is all you care about. You always use money to control me. Dad is gone, and you just want to keep me on a leash. I am trying to protect you from fraud." There was a scuffling sound, the phone being fumbled. Then, a new voice came on the line. Smooth, calm, and terrifyingly cold. "Marjorie," Calla said, "you are upsetting your son. You need to respect our boundaries. This is my day. Ours, not yours." "Calla, put him back on." "No," she said. "Go to sleep." "Marjorie, you are sounding hysterical." And then, faintly, in the background, I heard it. It was not Evan. The voice was deeper, older, with a gravelly timbre. It came from somewhere close to the phone, perhaps a few feet away. "Tell her. Remember the signature." I froze. "Who is that?" I asked, my grip on the phone tightening. "Who is that man with you?" "Goodbye, Marjorie," Calla said. The line went dead. I sat there, the silence of the house pressing in on my ears. Remember the signature. They knew I had the files. They knew about the forgery. Before I could set the phone down, a notification banner dropped down from the top of the screen. It was a security alert from my email provider. New sign-in attempt detected. Device unknown. Location Briar Glen. Hotel district. They were not just celebrating. They were trying to break into my digital life. They wanted to see if I had scanned the documents, if I had sent them to a lawyer. They were hunting me. Then, the phone buzzed again. A text message. It was the same anonymous number as before. "Don't call anymore. You are spooking them. They are clearing the path for a wire transfer tomorrow morning. Do you want to know the name of the man who just spoke? I did not go to bed." I sat at my dining room table with my laptop open, turning my grief into a forensic audit. It was 2 a.m. I logged into my email provider and bypassed the inbox, going straight to the activity logs. There was a successful login at 11:15 from an IP address registered to the hotel Wi-Fi. They had been inside my account. I went to the trash folder. It had been emptied. But in my line of work, we know that nothing is ever truly gone. I ran a restoration script I use for work. Slowly, the ghosts reappeared. Dozens of emails from a service called Secure Sign, all confirming the receipt of electronic signatures. One subject line stood out: contract finalization, Silvercrest Legacy Advisors, trust restructuring. I searched for Silvercrest Legacy Advisors. Their website was sleek, filled with stock photos of smiling seniors and golden retrievers. But the About Us page listed no board members, no physical address, only a P.O. box in Delaware. I dialed the toll-free number listed at the bottom of the PDF contract. A synthetic voice answered immediately. "Welcome to Silvercrest. To access your file, please say or enter your 9-digit social security number." No operator, no company directory, just a data harvesting gate. I hung up. This was not a financial firm. It was a shell. I waited until 7 o'clock and drove to Darlene Pike's house. Darlene is 61, a chain-smoking former court clerk who can spot a doctored subpoena from across the room. I laid the forged beneficiary change and the Silvercrest contract on her kitchen table. Darlene put on her reading glasses and lit a menthol cigarette. She hovered a magnifying glass over the signature on the beneficiary form. "Look at the pressure points. Marge," she said, tapping the paper with a manicured nail. "See how the ink density is perfectly uniform. A real pen leaves microscopic trails. This is a digital stamp. And look at the loop on the M. It has a jagged edge." She pulled a dusty box from her shelf. rummaging until she found an old Christmas card I had sent her 5 years ago. She held it next to the forgery. It was a perfect match. They didn't forge it freehand, Darlene said, blowing smoke away from the documents. They lifted it. They took a photo of your signature from an old document, cleaned it up in Photoshop, and pasted it here. Have you let anyone photograph your husband's papers recently? The memory hit me like a slap. 2 months ago. Calla had come over for dinner. She had been so sweet, asking about Richard. She said she wanted to create a memorial table at the reception with photos of our family history. She asked to see his old letters, his certificates, even the trust binder because she loved the vintage look of the papers. I had sat there drinking tea while she snapped photo after photo with her high-resolution phone. I handed it to her. I said, my voice hollow. I let her take the pictures. Darlene turned back to her computer. She had access to a public records database she still paid for. She typed in Calla Wynne. Well? Darlene muttered, this is interesting. No graduation record from the state university she claims on her LinkedIn. And here? A civil suit in Nevada 3 years ago. Fraud and misappropriation of assets. It was withdrawn before trial. Likely settled out of court. My phone buzzed. It was the anonymous number again. The Roasted Bean, Main Street, back booth, 10 minutes. I left Darlene's and drove to the coffee shop. I sat in the back, my back against the wall. 5 minutes later. A young man in a black hoodie walked in. He looked exhausted. It was the IT guy I had seen setting up the speakers at the rehearsal, Lionel Greer. He slid into the booth opposite me, constantly checking the door. I shouldn't be here, he said, his voice shaking. If they find out I talked to you. Who are they? I asked. Calla. And the guy? The one on the phone? Lionel leaned in, dropping his voice. I manage the guest database. I saw the logs. They didn't just delete you. Mrs. Whitaker. They monitored your reaction time. Why I asked. Why go through all this trouble just to keep me out? Lionel looked me in the eye. The guest list is just smoke. They don't care about the wedding. They want a reaction. They knew if you showed up and made a scene, or if you called them screaming like a lunatic, they could record it. Record it for what? For the judge. Lionel whispered. They have a petition drafted. Emergency conservatorship based on mental instability. They want to prove you are obsessed, paranoid, and unfit to be the overseer of the trust. They provoked you to make you look crazy so they can legally strip you of your power. I did not drive back to the wedding venue to scream at the gates. That was what they wanted. They wanted a hysterical mother so they could record me and play it for a judge. Instead, I went home and turned my dining room into a war room. I stopped being Evan's mother and became what I have been for 22 years, a senior compliance auditor. I built a timeline. Every text message, every call log, the timestamp on the fake QR code, the login attempt on my email. I printed them all and organized them into a binder. I was not building a scrapbook. I was building an indictment. By noon the next day, Darlene had arranged a meeting with Wade Huxley. Wade is a lawyer who specializes in trust disputes. He works out of a glass-walled office downtown that smells of espresso and intimidation. He is a man who does not smile. He read through my binder in silence, flipping pages with a rhythmic snap. Mrs. Whitaker, Wade said, finally looking up. You understand what you are showing me if they used a digital lift of your signature to alter a legal document. That is forgery. If they used the internet to facilitate that fraud, it is wire fraud. We are not talking about a civil dispute anymore. We are talking about prison time. I want them to expose themselves. I said, I want undeniable proof before we file. They think I am confused and emotional. I want to use that. Wade nodded slowly. Then we bait the hook. I went back to work. I created a new document, a fabrication that looked exactly like a standard quarterly report from the Whitaker Trust. In it, I inserted a line item about a supplemental dividend distribution of $75,000 scheduled for release in 48 hours, pending final verification. I added a digital watermark to the background, invisible to the naked eye but traceable if the file was opened or forwarded. I composed an email. I addressed it to my own personal accountant, but I accidentally included Evan's old email address in the carbon copy line, the one I knew he still checked, the one I suspected Calla had access to. I typed, "Please verify the liquid assets for the upcoming distribution. I'm feeling too overwhelmed by the wedding drama to handle this myself right now." I hit send. While we waited, Lionel, the IT specialist, went to work on the open source intelligence. He traced the domain of the fake QR code. It was hosted on a server that had been paid for with a prepaid debit card. But the recovery email linked to an account that had appeared in several data breaches. "It's sloppy," Lionel said, pointing at his screen. "They are rushing. And look at this." He pulled up a credit report he had managed to access through public lien records. Evan isn't just broke. He is underwater. He has 3 maxed-out credit cards and a personal loan for $20,000 taken out 3 months ago. He is drowning. That hurt. My son was in trouble, and instead of coming to me, he was trying to steal from his father's legacy. Then Wade walked back into the conference room. He was holding a document he had pulled from the county clerk's digital archives. "I found their marriage license application," Wade said, "and I found something else attached to their file. They filed a prenuptial agreement." "That is smart," I said. "We have assets to protect." "No," Wade said, sliding the paper across the mahogany table. "Read the terms." "Marjorie, this doesn't protect Evan. It guts him." I put on my glasses. The legal jargon was dense, but the meaning was clear. In the event of a divorce, Evan waived all rights to spousal support. He waived rights to any shared assets acquired during the marriage. And most damning of all, there was a clause stating that any family inheritance or trust disbursements brought into the marriage joint accounts would become the sole property of Calla Wynne immediately upon deposit. "Why?" I whispered, my hand shaking. "Why would he sign this if he divorces her? He leaves with nothing. If he stays, she takes his inheritance. He didn't read it," Wade said, his voice flat. "Or he is being coerced. Either way, your son didn't just marry a con artist. He just signed his own financial death warrant." My phone buzzed. It was a notification from my email tracker. Document opened. Location, The Lark and Linden Hall. User duration 5 minutes. "They took the bait," I said. "They think there is $75,000 sitting there, waiting to be grabbed." Wade closed his folder. "Then let's get the net ready." I had just poured my second cup of coffee at my desk when the internal line rang. It was the director of security. He did not ask how my weekend was. He simply told me to come downstairs and to bring my badge. When I walked into the grey, windowless room, the head of human resources was already there, holding a printed email. "Marjorie," she said, avoiding my eyes. "We received an anonymous whistleblower complaint this morning. It alleges you have been creating false vendor profiles to funnel payments into a private account." I sat down, keeping my back straight. I knew this play. If they could destroy my professional reputation, my credibility as the trust overseer would vanish. If I was fired for embezzlement, any accusation I made against Calla would look like the desperate raving of a criminal. Check the IP address of the whistleblower, I said calmly, and check the timestamps on those vendor profiles against my login activity. I was suspended pending investigation. I walked out of the building with my head high, but my hands were trembling. I called Lionel from the parking lot. "I'm already on it?" Lionel said, his voice tinny through the speaker. "Someone accessed your HR file using a stolen admin credential." The signal bounced, but I caught the tail of it. It came from the guest network at the Lark and Linden Hall. They were attacking me on all fronts. I drove home, expecting silence, but I found violence instead. The back door of my house was not open, but the frame was splintered where a crowbar had forced the lock. I did not scream. I stepped inside. The house was not tossed. The TV was still there. My jewelry was untouched on the dresser. I walked straight to the study. The filing cabinet was open. The hanging folders were pushed aside. Only one thing was missing: the original binder for the Whitaker Family Trust. I did not call the police immediately. I called Wade and Darlene. We treated the room like a crime scene. Wade took photos of the splintered wood and the empty drawer. Darlene wore gloves and placed the remaining files into evidence bags. We were building a case, brick by brick. "They are desperate," Wade said, snapping a photo of the lock. "They know the digital forgery won't hold up if you produce the original wet ink document, so they came to steal the ink." At 8 o'clock, a car pulled into the driveway. I watched through the blinds. It was Evan. He looked terrible. His tuxedo shirt was unbuttoned, his eyes red-rimmed, his face pale and unshaven. He walked up the steps like an old man. I opened the door. "Mom?" he said, his voice cracking. Can I talk to you?" I stepped aside. He walked into the kitchen and slumped onto a chair. He did not look at the empty spot where the trust binder used to be. "I messed up," he whispered, putting his head in his hands. "I messed up so bad. It wasn't supposed to go this far." "How much do you owe?" "Evan?" I asked. He flinched. It was an investment. Digital real estate. The metaverse. It was supposed to triple in 6 months. I lost it all. $150,000. I closed my eyes. And Calla knew. She said she could fix it. Evan said, looking up with wet eyes. She said the trust was just sitting there, doing nothing. She said we could borrow it and put it back before you noticed. She said she had an advisor who knew how to structure it legally. "The man on the phone," I said. "Who is he?" Evan shook his head. "I don't know. She calls him her mentor. I've never met him. They talk on encrypted apps. I hear his voice sometimes." He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver USB drive. He placed it on the table between us. His hand was shaking so hard, the drive rattled against the wood. "I stole this," Evan said. "From her laptop while she was in the shower. I don't know everything that is on it, but I saw a folder with your name on it." He looked at me, and for the first time in years, I saw the little boy who used to be afraid of the dark. "Mom, take it. But please, if you look at what is on there, you are going to hate me. You are going to hate me for real." I plugged the silver USB drive into my laptop. The folder opened with a soft click that sounded like a gun being cocked in the quiet room. Inside, there were no wedding photos. There were scanned PDFs and 3 audio files. I clicked on the first audio file. The speakers crackled, and then Calla's voice filled the kitchen. It was not the voice she used with Evan. It was not the sweet, high-pitched tone she used with guests. It was low, flat, and completely devoid of warmth. "He is soft," Calla's recorded voice said. "He will do whatever I say if I frame it as us against the world. Evan is just the conduit. Once the funds are moved, his signature doesn't matter anymore. We just need to make the mother look unreliable." A man's voice answered. It was the same gravelly voice I had heard on the phone. "Unreliable isn't enough. We need legally incompetent. If she makes a scene at the venue, we file for emergency guardianship the next morning." I stopped the recording. My hand was shaking, but I forced myself to open the next file. It was a PDF scan. It was a practice sheet, rows and rows of my signature. Marjorie Whittaker, traced over and over again. At the top of the page was the source image. It was a scan of a Christmas card I had sent 3 years ago. "To my darling grandson. Love, Grandma Marjorie." They had not just forged my name. They had dissected a note of love to my family and turned it into a weapon to rob us. Lionel leaned over my shoulder, pointing at the screen. He had been running a background trace on the email headers found in the document metadata. "I got him," Lionel said, his voice grim. "The advisor, his name is Brooks Calder. He was stripped of his license in Arizona 5 years ago for running a predatory annuity scheme targeting widows. He isn't a financial planner. He is a predator." I turned to Evan. He was sitting at the table, his head in his hands. He looked small. "You knew?" I said. It was not a question. "You knew they were practicing my signature. When did you know?" Evan looked up. His face was wet with tears, his eyes red and swollen. "Mom, I thought it was just technicalities," Calla said. "She said you were stubborn. She said you would never agree to the loan because you didn't understand the modern market. I didn't think it was a crime. I thought it was just paperwork. It is theft." "Evan?" I slammed my hand on the table. "And you signed your name to it. You didn't just cut me from a party. You helped them build a case to call me insane so you could steal your father's money. That was the knife in my heart. It was not the embarrassment of the wedding. It was that my son, the boy I raised to be honest, had allowed himself to be so manipulated that he was willing to destroy my reputation to cover his debts." Wade stood by the window, looking out at the dark street. He turned to us, his face hard. "We do not sue yet," Wade said. "If we go to the police now with just this, they might claim it is a civil misunderstanding. We need them to commit the felony. We need them to execute the transfer. You want me to let them steal the money I asked? I want them to try," Wade said. "The moment that money leaves the trust account and hits the account connected to Brooks Calder, it is wire fraud and grand larceny. We catch them in the act. But you need to sell the performance. Marjorie, you need to make them believe you are broken." I understood. I picked up my phone. I composed a text to Evan, knowing Calla would read it. I made my fingers type words that tasted like ash in my mouth. "I can't take this anymore. I am so tired of fighting. Please just let me see you. I don't care about the money or the papers. I just want my son back." I sent it. 10 minutes later, my phone rang. It was Calla. I put it on speaker. Wade nodded at me to answer. "Hello," I said. letting my voice waver, injecting a tremor of exhaustion into the word. Marjorie, Calla said. Her voice was smooth, victorious. She sounded like a cat purring over a trapped mouse. I saw your text. It is pathetic. Really, but I am feeling generous today. I just want to end this. I whispered, please. I can let you back into the family? Calla said. I can let you see Evan. But there are conditions. I have a small document. It is a simple amendment. It clarifies that you are stepping down as overseer due to stress. If you sign it, we can all have dinner on Sunday. I looked at Wade. He gave me a sharp nod. What do I have to do? I asked. Meet me, Calla said. Tomorrow. 10 in the morning. And Marjorie, do you want to hear the best part? If you sign, I won't even tell the judge about your little outburst at the wedding. I'll be there. I said. Good, she replied. And bring a pen, a real one. The meeting place Calla chose was a masterclass in manipulation. It was a nail salon called Velvet Tips, tucked into the corner of a busy strip mall. It was the kind of place that had security cameras in every corner to record our physical safety. But the air was so filled with the hum of ventilation fans and pop music that no camera would ever pick up our conversation. To the world, we would look like a mother and daughter-in-law getting manicures. To me, it looked like an interrogation room. I walked in at 10 o'clock sharp. Darlene was in her car 3 rows back, watching the entrance through binoculars. I adjusted the collar of my blouse. Underneath the fabric, taped to my collarbone, was a high-fidelity recording device Wade had procured. Calla was already seated at a drying station in the back. She did not stand up when I approached. She simply pointed to the empty chair opposite her with a freshly manicured hand. Sit, she said. I sat. I kept my shoulders hunched, my hands clasped tight in my lap. I needed to look small. I needed to look beaten. I brought the pen. I whispered. Calla slid a single sheet of paper across the white laminate table. It was not a greeting card. It was a legal waiver titled Voluntary Relinquishment of Overseer Authority. I scanned the text. It stated that I, Marjorie Whittaker, was stepping down due to declining cognitive health and appointing Evan Whittaker as the sole executor. This says I am incompetent, I said, my voice trembling. It says I am confused. Well, aren't you? Calla asked. Her voice was low, barely audible over the whir of the drying fans. You made a scene at my wedding. You have been harassing us with phone calls. You sound unstable. Marjorie, I just wanted to be there. I said, why did you do it? Calla, why the fake invitation? Why the QR code that didn't work? Calla smiled. It was a cold, terrifying expression. Because I needed you to break. I needed a public display of your unsuitability. The plan was for you to scream at the gate so we could film it, but you just walked away. You are harder to break than I thought. I felt the recorder heating up against my skin. She had just admitted to the trap. If I sign this, I asked, looking down at the paper. What do I get? Do I get to see Evan? You get to stop embarrassing yourself. Calla hissed. You are not young anymore. You are an anchor. Marjorie, you are dragging Evan down with your penny pinching and your old world fear. He needs capital. He needs to fly. And you will make him drown. And the money I asked, the trust. The trust is wasted on a savings account, she said. We are going to put it to work. With Brooks, I asked. Is that his name? The man on the phone? Calla laughed softly. You think you are clever. Brooks is a ghost. He is a cleaner. By the time you find a way to trace him, he will be gone, and the money will be ours. You will never touch him. He is smarter than a small-town auditor. My phone buzzed in my purse. I ignored it, but I knew who it was. Lionel. I need time, I said. Please, just 24 hours to say goodbye to my husband's legacy. Calla snatched the paper back. You have until tomorrow morning. If you don't sign, I will file the mental incompetency petition. And then, Marjorie, you won't just lose the money. You will lose your freedom. I stood up. My legs felt heavy, but not from fear, from the weight of the evidence I was carrying. I walked out into the bright sunlight. As soon as I cleared the door, I checked my phone. The text from Lionel was flashing on the screen. Alert, the QR domain, just updated. It is redirecting to an active payment gateway now. The transfer protocols are initiated. They are moving the money in 48 hours. I reached for my car door, but a hand touched my arm. I spun around. It was a woman I had never seen before. She was in her late 40s, wearing large sunglasses and a trench coat that looked like it had seen better days. She was smoking a thin cigarette. "You're Marjorie," she said. Her voice was rasping, like sandpaper on concrete. "Who are you?" I asked, stepping back. "I'm Renee," she said, taking a drag of her cigarette. "I am Brooks Calder's ex-wife. I saw you in there with the blonde shark. If you want to take them down, you are going to need more than a tape recorder." She flicked the ash onto the pavement and looked me dead in the eye. "I know where they are going to meet to sign the transfer authorization. If you want to stop them, you need to be in the room." Renee Caldwell did not mince words. She wrote an address on the back of a napkin and shoved it into my hand. "Cedar Row Executive Suites," she said, exhaling smoke that smelled of cheap menthol. "Room 302. They book it by the hour under a shell company called Apex Consulting. They are meeting there tomorrow at 10 to finalize the transfer. If you aren't in that room, the money disappears into a labyrinth of offshore accounts that you will never untangle." We raced back to Wade's office. The atmosphere was electric. Wade was already on the phone with a contact at the State Financial Integrity Bureau, requesting an emergency preservation order. He was speaking in rapid-fire legal code, demanding a freeze on any transactions originating from the Whitaker Trust, while he argued with a judge on the other line. I looked at the laptop screen Lionel had set up. He had intercepted a file from Calla's cloud storage. It was a legal petition titled Motion for Emergency Protection and Restraining Order. I read the attached exhibits and felt my blood run cold. They were screenshots of text messages I had sent, but they were wrong. Sentences had been cut and pasted together. A message where I said, "I will kill this deal if you don't stop," had been cropped to read, "I will kill you. She isn't just trying to steal the money," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "She is trying to have me committed. If this goes to a judge, and I am labelled unstable, my testimony against them becomes worthless. Everything I say will be dismissed as the rantings of a jealous, senile mother." Wade hung up the phone. "That is their ace card. They expect you to refuse to sign tomorrow. They expect you to explode. Then they file this petition. We have to flip the script. You are going to agree to sign. I'm what I asked. You go to that meeting," Wade said. "You play the defeated mother. You buy us time for the Integrity Bureau to get their warrant approved. Lionel will be in the van outside, tracking the network activity. We need them to initiate the login to the bank portal while you are in the room. We need to catch them with their fingers on the keyboard. Evan was sitting in the corner, looking like a ghost. He had been silent for an hour. I can't do it, Evan stammered. Brooks, he has something on me. What does he have? Evan, I asked. We already know about the debts. Evan shook his head, his face burying into his hands. It isn't just debts. Calla. She took out a loan, a massive one, $100,000. She did it in my name, but she used a fake notary stamp she bought online. She told me if I didn't help her get the trust money to pay it back, she would turn me in for loan fraud. She said I would go to prison for 20 years because the loan is in my name. I stared at my son. He was not a villain. He was a hostage. A foolish, weak hostage. But a hostage nonetheless. She set you up as the fall guy, I said. If the scheme works, she gets the money. If it fails, you go to jail for fraud. I made a choice then. I would not let Calla destroy my son. I would save him from prison. But I would make sure she and Brooks paid for every second of this nightmare. We are going to that meeting, I told Evan. And you are going to stand next to me. You don't have to speak. You just have to be my son. That night, I sat in my living room, waiting for the sun to rise. At 3 a.m, my phone chimed. It was an email notification. I opened it. It was an email sent from my account. It was addressed to the entire guest list of the wedding. Subject, an apology. I, Marjorie Whitaker, admit that I fabricated the story about being removed from the wedding. I am struggling with mental health issues and acted out of jealousy. Please forgive Evan and Calla. I stared at the screen. I had not written this. They had spoofed my account again. They were salting the earth, making sure that no one would believe me when the truth came out. I called Wade immediately. I see it, Wade said, his voice calm. Don't panic. Look at the header. Do you see the routing path? I looked closer. It didn't originate from your provider, Wade said. It came from a masked server. And because they were lazy, they left a digital watermark from the spoofing software they used. They just handed us the final nail. Marjorie. They just proved they are impersonating you. Get some sleep. Tomorrow, we end this. I walked into room 302 of the Cedar Row Executive Suites, looking exactly like the woman Calla wanted me to be. My shoulders were hunched, my eyes were rimmed with red, and I clutched a cheap plastic pen in a hand that I allowed to tremble visibly. Brooks Calder was sitting at the head of the mahogany table. He looked like a televangelist, wearing a navy suit that likely cost more than my car. He smiled, a practiced expression of pity that did not reach his cold, shark-like eyes. Calla sat next to him, tapping furiously on her laptop. Marjorie, Brooks said, his voice smooth as oil. You are making the right choice. This transition is for the best. It preserves your dignity. He slid 2 documents across the table. One was the transfer authorization. The other was the competency evaluation, already filled out with lies about my mental state. I picked up the authorization. I looked at Calla. I just don't understand modern banking, I stammered. If I sign this, how does the money get to Evan? I don't want it to get lost in the cloud. Brooks chuckled condescendingly. It is very simple. Marjorie. We utilize a secure QR bridge that routes the funds through a temporary intermediary account for tax purposes. It happens in seconds. He had just admitted to using an intermediary shell account. The recording device taped to my chest caught every syllable. The door opened, and Evan walked in. He looked pale. He walked straight to Calla and stood by her chair. She reached out and gripped his wrist, her nails digging into his skin. It looked like affection, but I knew it was a threat. "Just sign it. Mom," Evan said, his voice flat. "Let's just get this over with." He was playing his part perfectly. He made them feel safe. I lowered the pen to the paper. Calla leaned forward, her eyes hungry. "Do it," she whispered, "and you can go back to your quiet little life." I looked up. The tremble in my hand vanished. I dropped the pen. "No," I said clearly. "I don't think I will." Calla's face twisted. "What you promised." The conference room door slammed open. Wade Huxley marched in, flanked by 3 agents in windbreakers emblazoned with State Financial Integrity Bureau. "Step away from the laptop," one of the agents shouted. Lionel's voice crackled through my earpiece. I got the handshake. "They just tried to ping the server. We have the IP match?" Calla jumped up, knocking her chair over. She pointed a shaking finger at me. "She is crazy. You have to arrest her. She has been stalking me and harassing us. She is mentally unstable." I calmly pulled my phone out and pressed play. Calla's voice from the nail salon filled the room, loud and clear. "If you sign, I won't even tell the judge about your little outburst. You will get a seat in the back row." The color drained from her face. Brooks Calder made a move for the side exit, trying to slip away while the agents focused on Calla. He threw the door open, only to find Renee Caldwell blocking his path. She blew a cloud of cigarette smoke right into his face. "Going somewhere?" Honey Renee asked, holding up a file folder. I gave the agents the ledger. "Brooks, the one where you list your consulting fees for stealing from widows." An agent grabbed Brooks, spinning him around and slamming him against the wall. Another agent moved toward Calla, who was now backing into the corner. "Calla Wynne," the agent said. "You are under arrest for wire fraud, identity theft, and conspiracy to commit grand larceny." "This is a mistake," Calla shrieked. "My name is Calla Wynne. I am a victim." The agent shook his head. "We ran your prints against the database when you touched the table. Your name isn't Calla Wynne. It's Jessica Vane. And Calla Wynne is just one of 6 identities you have used in 3 states." I watched as the realization hit Evan. He stared at the woman he married. "The QR code," he whispered. "It wasn't for check-in." "No." The agent confirmed. It was a data scraper. Every wealthy guest who scanned that invitation gave her access to their device metadata. She wasn't just robbing the trust. Mrs. Whitaker. She was planning to mine the entire wedding list. The handcuffs clicked around Calla's wrists. She looked at me, her mask finally gone, revealing pure, unadulterated hatred. "You ruined everything." She spat at me. "You were supposed to be gone. You were supposed to be irrelevant." I walked up to her. I stood tall, the audit manager who had spent 22 years finding the truth. "You deleted my name from the guest list to make me disappear," I said, my voice steady and cold. "But you forgot one thing about auditors, Calla. We always balance the books. I didn't need to be at the wedding. I just needed you to appear, right here, before justice." As they dragged her out, Evan walked over to me. He didn't say a word. He just hugged me, burying his face in my shoulder like he was 5 years old again. We had a long road ahead, lawyers, plea deals for his cooperation, and rebuilding our trust, but as I held him, I knew one thing for certain. My name was Marjorie Whittaker, and I was still here. Thank you so much for listening to this story. I really hope you enjoyed the twists and turns of Marjorie's revenge. I would love to know where you are tuning in from today. Drop your city or country in the comments below. It is always amazing to see how far these stories travel. If you want more stories like this, please hit that subscribe button for Grandma's Family Diary. Leave a like and smash that hype button to help this video get recommended to more people. See you in the next story.